1 o'clock with 18 right now, so I'm going to bring them in and start us off, and I'll turn it over to you in just a couple minutes.
Perfect.
You're
All right.
welcome
Thank
to
you.
stay or shut cameras and whatever you
Okay.
prefer. Hang out is fine.
Okay. I don't, whatever.
It's up to you. Let's get it
Mm.
started. All right, we're started. Okay. Where's my attendees? Okay, people are starting to file in, so give us just a minute and we'll wait until this attendee list fills out. All right, you all are showing up today. Some of you I see were with me for the last 2 days. You can't get enough of me working out of this box, huh? Thank you all for being here. Welcome. We're here today with CBIZ Adventure Sports. CBIZ has been an amazing partner for America Outdoors for years. I know a lot of you use them as your insurance provider. A lot of you have questions about who to use or what's better. We have a handful of great partners in the insurance realm. This is one of them. And so we're just going to give them the opportunity to share some of what's going on in the industry and some of what they do. Before we get started, I'd love to say thank you to those of you who were in our Managers Academy the last 2 days, or those of you who sent people from your team. We had an amazing 2 days of learning and engaging and interacting and great people just working together for 2 days, and they're going to make an amazing impact on the industry. So it was really exciting to see. Coming up, so you are aware, we are a partner with Cornerstone Safety Group, and they provide a lot of resources that as America Outdoors members you have access to. We have a whole bunch of new ones that have been posted on the website. You do need to log in to see them. Those are on the website under resources. They will also come out in links in our newsletter tomorrow. So just to be aware, those are some new resources coming to you. Upcoming events, I'd love to plant the seeds for our Grand Canyon fundraising trip, which is coming up in August. We're doing a 7-day trip, hopefully with outfitters and commercial members and just people in our industry to be able to spend the week together in the Grand Canyon. The proceeds from that will go to our legislative affairs, government affairs work at America Outdoors. So it promotes the work that we do and helps us continue to do what we do. So thank you to those of you who are members, those of you who support us regularly. Just a few things there. But without further ado, we have about an hour to go, and I want to make sure I don't waste any time. We're going to turn that over. Leslie and John with CBIZ Adventure, I am going to turn it over to you. Thanks for
Great.
being here.
Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right. Go ahead, John. I'll let you start.
All right. Thank you, Leslie. And thanks everybody for joining us. I know how busy everyone is, particularly this time of year. So appreciate you taking some time out of your day to spend an hour with us. My name, as it says, is John O'Connor. I'm the Director of Claims and Risk Management for CBIZ's National Programs Division. I've been in the industry for over 30 years now, always on the claims side of the business. I've directly handled claims. I've provided litigation oversight, worked closely with defense attorneys to sculpt and guide litigation strategies. So I've been doing this for a little bit, and I have seen how things can go wrong and what happens when they do go wrong. So hopefully today I can offer some insights and things don't go wrong should you find yourself in a claim situation. And just real briefly, as far as logistics, we will leave time at the end for questions and answers. So if you have a question on something that maybe we don't touch on, please feel free to jump in at the end. But also, we look for this to be collaborative. So please feel free to hit the raise hand button if you have a particular question about what we're talking about at the moment, and we're happy to address that, prior to the formal Q&A. So thanks again. Leslie, I'll turn it back to you.
All right. And I'm Leslie Frazee. I'm the program manager for the CBIZ Adventure Sports Insurance Program. And I've worked closely with outfitters across the country for 30 years this year and helping structure coverage and manage risks. And today what we want to do is give you a real world practical understanding of how to protect your business. Like John said, we do want to kind of keep this conversational, interactive, so feel free to bring your questions.
Okay, so, jumping in, why does this matter now? Why is it important? Number of factors in that, obviously. Participation is up in the adventure sports industry, which is fantastic, but also litigation is up. And jurors now are very emotionally driven. I'm sure everyone has seen articles everywhere about nuclear verdicts. And as I've mentioned, I've been doing this for 30 years, and every day I read news of a verdict that just shocks me. I can remember 30 years ago, you could settle fatalities for less than policy limits, depending on the fact pattern. And that just certainly isn't the case now. So also, waivers are being challenged. They're not always enforceable. And when something goes wrong, the court of public opinion it is really never far behind.
At the same time, insurers are, they have tightened capacity and coverage, but we are starting to see a little bit of expansion in that area. Recently, specifically, the National Park Service has reformed, which is a huge win for our industry, and they'll now allow for a waiver to be signed. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we proceed through.
Okay, so, as we mentioned, waivers aren't bulletproof. They're body armor, but they have vulnerabilities, and there's ways to pierce them, just like there is body armor. They don't cover gross negligence. So, if you fail to follow your own safety procedures, you may find yourself in a situation that the waiver isn't going to help there. They're not equally enforceable by state. Language matters very much in these forms. In a litigation situation, they're going to be scrutinized heavily. And, I've seen situations where things have been thrown out because the font size is not properly, or a comma or a semicolon can make a difference. So, they are a tremendous tool, and we rely on them very heavily, but obviously they are challenged often, and we shouldn't get a false sense of security from that. Also kind of want to talk about the just the importance of words and the importance of documentation. Just to give you an example, I handled a claim for a rock climber a few years back during a rappel. Yes, scraped her knee. That's really how we would describe it, as a knee scrape or a minor laceration, no fall, no guide error. 3 weeks later, she developed a staph infection. The attorney claimed improper first aid and lack of follow-up. And from a defense and claims standpoint, what really caused problems for us in the incident report, which might seem very benign, there was a statement that said she didn't seem hurt, just embarrassed. So plaintiffs locked onto that and really dug in that we being the adventure sport outfitter and the insurance company, we didn't take it seriously. So point that out, really, that it's just, how important detail is, as we move forward in a very challenging litigation environment. And then Leslie, if you want to move on.
Yeah, for sure. That definitely is why the NPS waiver reform that happened in February of this year is critical to moving forward in the outdoor industry. They're now allowing concessionaires and CUA holders to use liability waivers, acknowledgement of risks, and indemnity clauses. And that's definitely a major shift to help us keep in line with other agencies.
Yeah, and it's a big win for a claims professional like me. Having a waiver versus an acknowledgement of risk it's a game changer. So this is big news out of the National Park Service. And I thank the lobbying group. I know they had a lot to do with pushing this across the finish line. So we're all going to benefit from this going forward. And then, kind of dovetailing on that, I thought I would just touch briefly the difference between a waiver and an acknowledgement of risk. At its base level, a waiver is a legal contract. So the participant not only acknowledges that there's a risk, but they agree to give up their right to sue for ordinary negligence, where an acknowledgement is just that. It's an acknowledgement. When you see the sign at the car wash that says we're not responsible for damages to your car, well, that doesn't always hold up. If they damage your car and you sue them, the fact that they've had that sign and acknowledgement doesn't have a lot of teeth behind it. Where a signed waiver, we can be much more aggressive in our defense of those cases.
And from the insurance standpoint, waivers, show that you're proactively managing your liability, and it helps through the underwriting process for availability of coverages, as well as, potentially reducing your premiums. That's kind of a long-term effect. And again, I'll talk about that more later on, but really using the stronger waiver helps reduce the risk. They're definitely making, there's really not any insurance company out there that doesn't require that you have at least an acknowledgement of risk or a waiver to be signed. So that's definitely a requirement. And if we can get those stronger wording within those waivers, then that's putting us all in a much better position. And, when you are presenting your insurance policy, or when we are presenting them to our brokers or the insurance carrier, having these stronger waivers are also going to, show you have a better claims history. If we can settle suits for less, or even, making them go away with the fact that they did sign away, stating that they understood what they were doing, and signing that away, they would not sue you. We have recently, very recently, because of this change, we've seen some capacity opening up with some of our insurance carriers that became more open to insuring some outfitters that have had some claims history that has kind of followed them along. But because of this new reform, because of some other good practices that have been put into place, it helped open up, get better pricing and better coverage so that we could move forward with their season this year. Don't get too excited. Rates are stabilizing in the regular insurance market. It's still falling a little bit behind in the outfitter and guide division, because we are coming off of some pretty strong claims years. But I really see that, with the regular insurance marketplace opening up, that's going to follow along with us here quickly too. Let's see here. One thing I wanted to point out as well, and this is pretty commonplace anymore, that you have some common exclusions that are happening. And there's COVID, cyber, PFAS. PFAS are, let me try to pronounce this, polyfluoroalkyl substances. And those are like a man-made chemicals, and they're used in different types of products, such as, the water grease resistant, like non-stick cookware, your waterproof clothing, and cleaning products. And it's becoming highly, highly persistent in the environment and the human body. They're starting to see that it's related to liver damage, thyroid disease, increasing certain cancers. And because of all of that, there's a lot of regulation that's happening, and it is now a standard exclusion in most all policies. And that goes along with COVID as well. for virus transmission or not following proper protocols. So carriers are starting to open up to having higher deductibles or higher self-insured retentions. We'll go through that a little bit closer about what those are. There are, it's definitely helping with getting us some premium pricing. If we can apply some higher deductibles, putting you a little bit more in line, partnering with the insurance company if a claim does occur.
And with, greater retention, so obviously higher or a higher deductible, you as the operator are agreeing to assume more of your risk. So, with that said, kind of the Spider-Man with great responsibility, with great power comes great responsibility. So, I really can't stress enough to view this as a total cost of risk. So your insurance premium is one part of your cost of risk. And if you decide to move a little bit from that bucket and retain some of that in-house, that's where it really becomes paramount that your risk management strategies, and this you can kind of advance, Leslie, I think kind of dovetails into the next slide. But if you're going to agree to take on more risk and have a higher deductible, again, it's important that you have these things in place. And strongest operators tell a great story. And if you tell it before anything goes wrong in a claim situation, your documentation is the story that the adjuster is going to tell. It's what your defense attorney is going to tell, and potentially what a jury may hear. On an underwriting side, from Leslie's perspective, these things are the story that we're going to tell potential insurance carriers to try and get the best risk for you. So, important that you want to tell your story and not let someone else tell your story. And you want to make sure that it's a compelling story, whether that's in a claim situation or as you might be shopping coverage to other markets.
Definitely. Underwriters are definitely noticing the risk management tools that you are putting into place. It's almost a requirement anymore that you have that commitment to, operating a safe operation, building that culture that's proactive and not reactive. I wanted to mention a few more tools to add when you're working with your insurance broker, making sure to include a copy of your waiver, letting them know when it was reviewed last, what your cadence of reviewing it is. Are you getting it reviewed by an industry-specific attorney? That's kind of key too. We're in such a niche business here that it's really critical that the person reviewing that understands your operations. Having that critical incident plan in place, and making sure that your staff is trained on it and done on a regular basis, and to just having that commitment to that. Essential eligibility criteria. I don't know that applies to every operation, but that is a key tool as well. And, showing that you've had it signed off, or that your client is acknowledging that they've read through that and understand what's expected of them. Explaining your guide training. What are your minimum standards? What medical requirements do you require? How long have they been with you? And, what sets you apart from your competitors, or what makes you think that you're going above and beyond to provide additional layers of safety? That's important to share with your story too. And if you've had a loss, use that as a learning lesson and explain, or what can you do to potentially remedy that in the future? And what have you put into place? What have you changed to make that look better for you in the future? And then also having unique, memorable safety talks. It's really key that your participants understand what they're getting themselves into. So many participants, I'm sure everybody's heard that this waiver doesn't mean anything. It's not going to hold up in court. Well, there's a lot of new legislation in many states, and now, especially with the allowance from the National Park Service, they're more enforceable and ultimately your first line of defense. And if you can explain that as verbally as well in your safety talk, that will help put you in a better position as well.
And just to talk about some strategies, should you have an incident, my driving message, and I mentioned it in an earlier slide, is words matter. So, we never want to see something in a report like, I should have done more, or, we could have done this better. So, documentation is key, but clear, concise documentation is just as important. So we really want to stick to the facts, the time, the location, whether, who, what, when, where. And then, but that said, communication with the insured afterwards, this is a common question that I don't want to say anything that might jeopardize the claim or might jeopardize a lawsuit. I've never seen a situation where a jury is going to penalize you or infer anything from you being compassionate and caring after an act. So, I'm not suggesting we admit fault, but there's certainly nothing wrong with following up with an injured patron to see how they're doing and how you might help. So, your report might be read aloud in court, and that's kind of a standard I hold when I document a claim file, and I suggest you do the same thing when you create an incident report. Is if I'm put on a stand and somebody questions me, John, what did you mean when you write this sentence? Draft it in a mindset that you're going to have a compelling answer to that question.
Hey, John or Leslie, can I interrupt real quick since I've got a question in the Q&A?
Yes.
It's asking about the impact of electronic waivers. No guarantee that the person signing is the person that they say they are. A large percentage of families have the mom signing everything, including the husband.
Interesting question. And, it is an avenue that plaintiffs' attorneys will explore. It's hard to get into hypotheticals. We shy away from that. I can tell you in a general sense that, typically electronic waivers are going to hold up just as a, wet signature, as we refer to it with the pen. But if you are using electronic waivers, that is something I suggest you just have a conversation with your private counsel to make sure that they are compliant, and should they be tested down the road, that your process and however you're collecting those signatures electronically is really in compliance and enforceable.
I know that there's some legislation around that and some requirements if we are to use an electronic signature that helps with, I think there's statements in there that, you have to sign away saying that you are who you say you are. So that's just another, again, speak with your counsel and they can steer you in that direction. So there's a couple of different schools of thought on reducing your insurance costs. There's a short term that we'll talk about, and then I'll get into some of the long term as well. One of them, when we're asked that question, one of the first things that comes to mind is increasing your deductibles or, self-insuring something. I think, if we, with K&K, I'll just mention a couple of the primary carriers in the outdoor recreation insurance industry. K&K, for one, they are open to deductibles. They have deductibles or self-insured retentions clear up to $1 million. I don't know that they would necessarily provide that very freely. If you have up to a $10,000 deductible, they'll do that easily without you providing them with financial statements. Once you go above a $10,000 deductible, they're going to require you to provide them with an income and expense statement and a balance sheet. They want to see that you can provide, pay that deductible after the fact, and those financial statements will help them review your situation and see what limit they can offer. There's a deductible, then there's also what's called a self-insured retention. And the higher that those self-insured retentions get, there's claims handling fees that go with that, escrow amounts that have to be maintained. And John, you can kind of comment more about that process a little bit.
Yeah, the really important thing to remember with an SIR is you are the front line. So in a deductible situation, if a claim is filed, we're going to jump in from day one. We're going to handle that claim. And once it's resolved and adjudicated at the back end, if you had a $10,000 deductible, we're going to settle directly with the claimant and we're going to turn back to you for that $10,000 deductible. And SIR, the SI is self-insured, and whatever that level is, if you maintain a $100,000 SIR, that really means call us after you've spent $100,000, essentially, is how an SIR works, that you're going to administer that claim. And it's really, for this group, speaking at a high level, I think a higher deductible is probably more appropriate. Generally on an SIR, you see that in organizations with strong financial wherewithal and a high claims volume. Many large SIR accounts, they have in-house claims, but like they're handling the first claims that come in. Most minor slip and fall claims that fall below that SIR deductible, the carrier is never even aware of it. But if that is something that you're considering, just know it is an involved process. You're going to need a solution to how are you going to handle those minor claims on your own without the carrier backing.
And on that topic, because of the low frequency, high severity type of industry that we're in, Philadelphia, for one, is that they may provide deductibles, but they're not super open to it. They just do not see necessarily the benefit to it of how that, if a claim happens, it's typically well above that deductible. We are seeing some other one-off carriers, freely offering up to $10,000 or $25,000, but not really wanting to go much higher than that. Some other tips, I guess, if I wanted to share with you is when you're filling out your application, spend some time on your revenue section, because that's where a lot of insurance companies are basing their rates off of the revenues that you're providing them, making sure that you're breaking it down by activity the best you can. I know on multi-day operations, that's a little bit hard to do, but if you're able to break down by class of water or by specific activities, break down, your food costs, those types of things, you can, rather than being lumped into one large, the highest rated class, we can try to get those separated down to give some relief in areas that aren't as high of risks in your operations. Maybe, we talked about self-insurance, maybe self-insuring your equipment. You don't necessarily have to insure your equipment, like on an inland marine schedule. Maybe that's something that you just want to take the chance on, or, only insure it for the catastrophic loss. If it's within your warehouse and you're only worried about it during the winter when it's all the equipment's stored in there, and not necessarily when you take them out on the river. That's an option as well. As far as property goes, installing security systems, when you're telling your story in that particular area, talk about your defensible space and what's your fire mitigation plans. That's, obviously a very hot topic, especially, actually it's just nationwide anymore. Do you have, is the Forest Service got a good eye on you and they're going to help protect you, or who's going to come in and help protect you if that fire does start in your area? As far as vehicle cost savings ideas, higher deductibles. Also, if you're carrying physical damage on your buses, your vans, your vehicles, carry higher deductibles or none at all. You're not required to insure them for physical damage, but that's something that you could consider pulling back in-house. Carriers like Progressive, they have what's called a snapshot. It is a vehicle monitoring device. It's actually, on one hand, it's kind of nice because they give you a whole dashboard so you can see where your fleet is at, who's where, how often it's being used, how fast people are going. But again, they are monitoring you, but they do provide a discount right up front. I think it starts at 5%. So that right there is something that could be considered. When you are in your off season, if your insurance company has the ability to do so, drop those vehicles that are just parked for the season down to like a comp only, or take those vehicles off during that time. Some carriers will also allow you to provide them with a layup schedule. So you can list your whole fleet and line item out, we use these buses from May through August, and then they should be able to provide a credit for that time that they're not being used, to give you some premium relief there. Quickly on workers' comp, just making sure you have a great return to work program. If if your injured employee isn't able to get back to work right away, that can definitely affect your experience mod and the weight of that claim on your premium as well. I think the biggest thing I'd like to focus on too, though, is the long term of how we're going to save premium and reduce our insurance costs. We have to continue creating this culture of safety and consistency. And, ultimately, if we can get these claims settled for less, it's going to help the entire industry and get those claims amounts reduced, which then directly reflect getting our premiums down as well. Like I've mentioned, having a risk management plan in place, implementing comprehensive safety training programs, crisis response, crisis communication plans, using good equipment, making sure you have a great maintenance plan, maintenance program in place, and documenting that. Joining professional associations just like the one we're here today with America Outdoors, or your state association or river specific groups, really engaging in that continuing education that they provide and collaborating with your fellow outfitters. That's a really key component, just to see what is going on and being able to share that within your organization as well. And lastly, establishing an incident response team.
So takeaway,
Oh.
so underwriters aren't just pricing your risk, they're pricing your preparedness. So the more prepared you are and the better you can tell that story, that has a direct connection to your premiums. And then I think if I don't have anything else to add from my end, if you don't, Leslie, if we have any questions and answers, really happy to jump on those.
Yeah, definitely. If we'd like to open it up for questions, if there are any.
I don't have any in the Q&A right now, but if people want to raise their hand too, I can certainly allow your mics to work. So feel free to put your hand up if you have questions or comments you want to share.
And as we're waiting on that, you'll see on the deck, both Leslie and I's email address is on there. That's available on our CBIZ website as well. We're kind of nerds about this stuff, so we love talking about it. There's no stupid question. Whether you're a current client or prospective client down the road, we're always happy to have a conversation. So please don't hesitate to shoot us a quick email or give us a call, and we're happy to chat through issues.
Hey, Marty's got a question for you here. Marty, you should be able to turn your mic on.
Hi, Leslie and John. Thank you for being here. So we're working on our management plan, risk management, and we're documenting everything like from our first aid kits to our repair kits and our safety talk. And when it came to safety talk, I've kind of heard the word safety is kind of not necessarily a better word to use is like orientation talk time. That when you refer to it as a safety talk, that sort of is a buzzword in the litigious world. Is that true?
It does. Oh, go ahead, John.
Go ahead, Leslie. I was going to say, I don't really, it's not something I've observed.
I think that the whole point, I guess, that we wanted to make with that is just bringing that awareness to your guests of what's ahead of them, and that they completely understand the risks that they're about ready to engage in, and their responsibilities if something were to happen. Does that?
Yeah, thank you. I
Thank you.
Okay, I have a question from Steven. Do you have an example of a preferred waiver form?
There are some insurance companies that will provide one. K&K being one of them, really cautious and want to be hesitant about just using a boilerplate form because there's so many specific rules to each state. That maybe John, you want to expand on that as well.
Sure. That is something I strongly encourage that you run your waiver by either your in-house counsel or, there are a number of attorneys through America Outdoors that specialize in this business. I'll say we are asked often to look at waivers, and I'll be very candid that I'm reluctant to opine. There are different regulations in all 50 states, and I in no way put myself out there as an expert in everyone. And I certainly would never want to be in a situation where I've told you this looks great, go ahead with it, and I've missed some language that should have, very obscure language that's, particular to Utah that I'm not aware of. So that is really something. I think it is a good investment to spend a little money with legal counsel and make sure you really have that waiver locked down.
Yeah, John, thank you. I actually hear that quite a bit from our attorneys as well, that they want you to double check into your state as well. So that's a tough question even for attorneys, I think, to answer. It's very specific to you.
Right. Well, and the permitting agencies too. I mean, just like the National Park Service prior to this year wouldn't allow those canned boilerplate forms like they would in the past. So.
Okay, I did also get a question of whether this would be recorded and available, and the answer to that is yes. This is being recorded. It will take a little bit to download, and then I'll trim out the beginning where I'm staring at the camera by myself, and then it should come to you in the email tomorrow with the link and be posted publicly on the YouTube page for America Outdoors. So if you're interested in watching this or backing up, it'll be there. Any other questions? I don't see any or comments. Anybody have anything else? Leslie, John, anything else?
Yeah. Just want to say thank you. I know it's a busy time of year, and I hope everyone has just a fantastic season.
I echo that.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I will speak on behalf of America Outdoors that same to you. It's a busy season for you. It's always a busy season for you, I think. And to the outfitters that came to listen, thank you for being here. It's important to collectively share knowledge and ask questions and collaborate. So it's great to have you in any and all of these events. Dan Moore, let me get your mic on. Yeah, Dan, there you go.
Just a quick question. I get asked a lot if about where to find insurance brokers that specialize in adventure tourism and outfitter and guiding. And I'm just wondering if America Outdoors has, if that's a resource like on the website.
So our partner brokers are all listed on our site, but you kind of have to search for them.
Okay,
Dan, specifically, if you'd like, I can send you a list of ours.
that'd be great.
Yeah, of
I mean,
course.
we have the companies I work with are all set, thankfully, but I just get asked a lot, who would you recommend? And rather than just pull a name out of the hat, I thought it would be nice to have a more of a comprehensive list to share with folks that all specialize in, because the one thing I know is that if you go with just your random insurance person up the street, they're not going to know anything about our industry. So and I feel better about recommending more than one, just because I think that that's more fair. Than people can do the research and find the person that's going to fit their needs or maybe is based closer to them. So that would be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. We don't have a huge list, but we have a short list of great partners. So we will be happy to share that.
Thank you.
Um, Great question. Anybody else have anything? I'm happy to wrap up and send you all back to work, but I'm also happy to answer anything, and I'm sure Leslie and John are as well if you need anything else. But if not, I will just say again, we're so grateful that you made time to be here today. On behalf of America Outdoors, we are so grateful to have your membership and your continued support so that we can continue to do the work that we do. So keep those memberships coming in, come on those fundraising trips, and come to the conference. Leslie, John, and all of CBIZ, thank you so much for making the time to put this together and to be here and to share this information with everybody.
Thank you.
And thanks for giving us the platform. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, everybody have a great day. We'll see you soon.
Bye.